So good. And I was thinking about how we were talking about doing something with the Liberty print, like a long time ago.
Yep. Yeah.
I had found all this Liberty print, and I was like, Anne, all these remnants that they sell at Liberty, they're so great, and they're just great around your wrist or what. And now I'm like, oh my God, they're all so great here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you guys are sold out of the men's one, Anne, because Nick already tried to buy some.
I know, but we'll restock. I mean, it was just the first wave. Go back on, and I'm sure you can do it now. Yes.
No problem.
I mean, we've sold so many. It's crazy. We didn't think it would be like that.
That's awesome. It's people need
But
it.
the thing is elastic is a hugely scarce commodity right now.
Right.
So I had a designer is like on the internet at 2:30 looking for, elastic and wherever.
That's really funny, but that's
my mom used to tell this story about in World War II, there was little elastic too. And she used to say to my girls that she hated it because her underwear wouldn't stay up. Because,
no.
Isn't that funny?
That's absolutely amazing. I love it. Circle. Okay, so for everybody just joining, I still see participants are joining, so welcome. Lizzie and I are so thrilled to have Ann Mashburn and Yolanda Edwards join us today. We've got two guests of honor today, partly because they're good friends, but also because we think that they can both give a diverse range of insight on travel. So without further ado, Ann Mashburn has been a friend, a mentor, and a supporter of ours. She has 5 retail locations. Her namesake brand sells amazing cottons, linens. My what is this, Anna? Jumper?
A tunic.
A tunic.
A tunic, yes.
A tunic. She's got baby brain.
That I've worn every day of maternity leave.
Putting yourself into, you look great.
Her Chelsea boots are always on the top of Lizzie's and my Christmas lists. And she and her husband Sid do a lot of production in Italy. And we've also got Yolanda Edwards on, who was the former creative director of Condé Nast Traveler and has since founded the YOLO Journal, which if you're not familiar, please check out YOLO, Y-O-L-O Journal. It is just the most beautiful publication. Lizzie and I were graced with the first issue in a hotel room last year, and it ended up covering, pictures from it ended up covering Lizzie's Spring 20 mood board, which was inspired by Northern Italy, and we first saw the YOLO Journal. So it all comes full circle. Obviously, as a creative sort of content and brand strategist, Yolanda spends a lot of time on the road. Her YOLO Journal is all about travel. Travel is a huge part of Lizzie's and my inspiration, our sourcing. We travel for store visits. And I think all of us, including hopefully most of the people on this call, are wondering when we're going to get on an airplane again, and when we're going to sort of, will we ever resume normal, and what the new normal will look like. So who better than Ann and Yolanda, who both have built their brands and businesses off a certain amount of travel, to kick it off with today. So both of you, thank you so much for joining. If you're online, please use the Q&A button to submit questions, and we'll do our best to make sure Ann and Yolanda answer them. And feel free to hit the gallery view so that you can see all the panelists at once. It makes it better. Yes, for sure. So, can I kick it off, Lizzie?
I'll kick it off. Okay, so Ann, we're going to start with you just kind of with brass tacks in terms of your production, because production can be pretty black and white. If a factory is closed, then you can't get product. Yes. So if you guys doing so much in Italy, and I know you travel to Italy a lot to meet with your assembly people and factory workers, is this making you consider Italian production? Are you guys looking at other venues? Are you kind of eating it out? What's the approach?
I mean, right now, nobody knows what's going to happen, but it's been, fluid. The odd thing was that in the beginning, there was so much news about Italy, and the Italians were going to work. They were shut down, but we'd be like, okay, they're at work. So it took a while for them to really shut down, and they did. So, a lot of our production is delayed. But, we just had a conference call we buy all of our fabric from Albini, which is right in Bergamo, where it was like the very worst. So, they're up and running, really hugely affected. I mean, even to hear the stories they're telling about this family and that family. And, but it's, everything's changed. I mean, we have things are coming in late. India we do some stuff there. You guys do too. That's closed now. So it's different. Like there's timing. Like we also do some things in China, and they were first closed, but then they opened. So, we've got less demand now, so we didn't need all of the product, and we're shifting it to later. But yeah, it's gratefully, I'm not the one that's juggling all that, but the teams have been really on it. And yeah, you can't, I would, we all would love to make things in our backyard, but mostly you can't. We try to make things wherever it's the very best for the best price, and that, where it's authentically made, just as you do. So, it's taught us a lot, but I don't see, jumping into an American factory because they don't really exist.
Right. Are you having, you mentioned shifting your deliveries. So obviously I'm sure your production and merchandising team has a cadence and says, these shirts, Oxfords are made in Italy, they're going to come in for Mother's Day, and now maybe didn't happen. Did you have enough product to keep the website fresh and new during these last 2 months when the website was your only source of income?
Yeah, that's a great question. We did. I mean, it would have looked different, and we think it might have been better, but I think it's also, we're going through a stage of our business where we feel like we have too much anyway. Like I look at my website, I'm like, my gosh, there's too much product. So we're trying to tighten it up anyway. I don't know if you've gone through when you've had a collection, you're like, that is just, you don't need that. You need less, it's deeper and more impactful. So I think we've learned a lot from this, and then just shifted the messaging, because you can, we didn't have this and we were planning on messaging that. So, and also I feel like I'm talking too much, but what we were selling, it didn't feel right for a little while to be pushing clothing. I mean, it was this world issue. So I think we have enough, and I'm going to try to sell it.
I think that's a good answer.
And it's a great time to be a direct brand as opposed to wholesale, because you're not fighting up against canceled orders with regard to actual deadlines. Like you can control what you're putting on your website at any given time.
Yeah. And and actually that's the thing about direct to consumer too, is that you see that it's like right then, we knew, if you talk about it, it usually sells. If you talk about it in a specific way, it sells more. And so you are pretty much in control. And we're so grateful that our customers really supported us on the web. I mean, people who'd never shopped on the web ever before did. And, I think they're going to be customers who enjoy web, forever.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Well, speaking of having to kind of like shift business and like reallocate and things like that, Yolanda, we know you're back in Brooklyn now, but you've been in upstate New York with your husband. We've seen you shipping some of your journals from there, including little travel memorabilia, which is so cool. We're wondering, this whole pandemic, does it make you reconsider the mission of YOLO Journal? Would you ever consider like an at-home issue, or is that really not the point of YOLO Journal? Is it all about being on the road?
I mean, I feel like YOLO is, it's just about dreaming as much as it is about doing. And so I think there was a part of me that kind of in the early days, like I think like everybody, I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know what, you didn't want to be insensitive, and I was just super lost. I think we all felt that way, and then I had actually an accidental Instagram post that went up. I had scheduled this post, like I was doing a lot of vintage things on Fridays, and I would schedule, those are really the only things I schedule in advance, because it takes a lot of research to find them. And so I put them up with one of those scheduling apps. Mm-hmm. And I woke up one Friday morning and there was this post that I'd totally forgotten I'd put up. And it was like this beautiful picture of all these people next to each other in close proximity at a pool in Paris. And I wrote weekend goals. And I was so horrified. It was like, oh my God, I got to delete that. But before I did it, there were so many likes and comments on it. And there were two that were like, really? Like, that's really your goal? But most of them were like, thank you so much for putting that up. and this was really early days. It was probably like 2 weeks in, and I left it up, and I thought about it like, actually, I'm not here to talk about the situation. Like, people don't need me. I'm not an expert on this pandemic, but I'm really more of an entertainer in a way. Like, so if I can provide people some break where they can just kind of like let their minds go and not think about, you know, whatever their issues are that they're going through, then that's what I'll do. So I kind of shifted my Instagram into doing much more of these, like, and this was like so not planned. It literally was, my friend Marie Louise was she runs the Pelicano hotel group in Italy. And she was doing these kind of periodic things where it was like, today I'm pretending I'm in Bologna or wherever she was. And I said, why don't we do a road trip? Like, why don't I pretend like I'm flying into Rome and I'm going to meet you at the Pelicano, and we kind of mapped this trip out. And she's like, oh, let's invite her friend Emily from Bellini Travel too. And I was like, okay, great. So we started this whole like chat that was like our Italian road trip chat group on WhatsApp. And just the planning of it, the finding the pictures to go with it, the talking about it, the waking up and having to be there. And then we would say to people on Instagram, like, oh, why don't you meet us at the bar? And they're like, oh, I'm here waiting for you. And it was this kind of weird reality that was like, I hate the idea of virtual reality and those things on your head, but this was like the best version of VR. And I really like I went somewhere.
It feels more like almost the return to childhood imagination that adults don't use enough. They don't use that side of their brain. I mean, it's almost like I can see you sketching a coloring book of your Italian road trip.
Yeah.
Or like playing Barbie. It's like, hi, I'm here.
Totally.
I literally found an Alitalia plane that was just like a little toy plane, and took a picture of that in my hand and was like, off we go. And then, you know, it's just like, but it is seeing things in your house in a different way. It's like kind of doing a scavenger hunt, finding the things that like they just transport you. I mean, we all know that like a box of matches can be that. It can be a candle. It could be, I mean, whatever those things are. It doesn't have to be like that you're somebody who travels as much. Sorry, we have a landline.
Oh, go ahead. I love that.
We're old.
I like that you mentioned the Alitalia plane, because that leads me to my next question. I know so many people are going to be nervous about getting on planes again. And I'm just wondering, like, you must be a very adventuresome, brave person to have the career that you've had. You explore so many places, Yolanda. You've been all over the globe. Do you feel like you'll be one of those braver souls who starts traveling maybe sooner than others do? Or how do you predict you'll get back on the road?
Well, I look at the website that gives all the updates on what restrictions are being lifted all the time. And sometimes I cry when I look at it, and I'm not really a crier, but it's like, I have to say, there's a part of me that really loves being in this kind of stationary situation, like that we're all forced to be still. So I kind of like this new weird world, at least the experiencing of it. Mm-hmm. But I miss being on a plane. I miss seeing something different. I miss, it's like being addicted to, it's like my adrenaline rush. So like today, a dear friend of mine who was stuck in London, and his husband was actually in Florence. He flew to Florence to work on his collection. It's Alvaro from Alvaro Sandals. And he flew there, and literally just the day he got there, they did the lockdown. So he and his husband have been separated for like 9.5 years. And today, Nick finally got the paperwork where he could fly. And so I watched the whole journey, And I mean, I was sobbing. I'm like, I love those guys, but I was just like the whole, like, because he really did every little bit from the Heathrow Express all of the way through. And it was just, to see those airplanes empty makes me sad. Like, to see, I don't know, the whole thing is sad, but I will be one of those people who goes and gets on the plane as soon as I can.
And for you guys, do you think that, obviously you're sort of heading up a business and you have responsibilities for your employees, so it's not just Yolanda's case where she's getting on a plane by herself or with her husband. Do you think you and Sid are going to have to reconsider whether you let your team travel to Italy in the coming 6-12 months? Do you think you'll do more of it on video and Skype? Like Lizzie and I used to go to India a fair amount and have been able to move pre-COVID a lot of those conversations to Skype just from a budget and timing perspective. But I know you guys touch and feel so much of it and have really deep relationships. Have you thought about shifting how you'll work with your overseas vendors?
We have, but it's mostly, it's just industry driven. Like typically, everybody's trying to figure it out. We were on the phone again with Albini and they were saying, will you come to the fabric show? We are hearing from most people that they're not going to come. So will they cancel it? Will, all the trade shows that people travel to go where you really get so much work done, may not be going on. So those questions, that isn't even a choice. It is what that would be. And we have, the great thing is that we have these deep relationships with these factories and these people already. And we actually have an agent in Italy, so it's helpful. We absolutely can do everything everything can get done without us being there. But to your point, there's nothing like really being there, and we're always looking for new things. I mean, supply chain is the biggest thing, and we love the Italians, but it's like sometimes you have to find something new or switch, or we're still figuring it out. So. But I think that, when I can go, I too, like Yolanda, will go. I'm not, afraid of flying, but it's just more the restriction and what are you going to be able to do? And what will that look like?
You asked a great question, and we'll ask you too, because you're both plugged in on travel right now. Do you think that restructuring of airplane seats will actually happen? So I know right now, flights are so not full that you can kind of get a row to yourself anyway, but do you guys anticipate that there will actually be fundamental changes in the way travel looks, logistically speaking, for the next few years?
I mean, I'm no expert in aviation, but I see, I have a friend who flew last week from Montreal to Paris, and she said it was a packed plane,
Wow.
Middle seats, everything.
Yeah.
So I think there are empty planes, and I think there are totally full ones, and I just think it's an industry that unfortunately cares about money and not about people's health and wellness. I think if the hand is forced, sure, but I don't know. I imagine that I don't know how they could change it so quickly.
Yeah,
and
I mean, they're already sunk. I mean, it's such terrible things. I mean, they have, in my little big company, I'm limited as to what I can do. I mean, it's business. And so I can't imagine that they're going to be reconfigure their plane when they have no money, and where, it's, but I also think that people, it's people making a choice. People are either going to come into my shop. We're opening, but we're doing things that will make the customers feel safer. We are steaming the clothes if there are germs, that can, we don't know. We're making sure people wear masks. We're washing our hands. But other than that, it's a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice. That's a very good point. I was listening to a really interesting podcast that Fashion did with a guy who owns a travel business, and apparently Emirates, which obviously is a high-end airline, not only do they take temperature when you're getting aboard, they actually perform a COVID test. So if you can't get a COVID test at your local hospital or LabCorp, book an Emirates flight was sort of the funny anecdote of the story.
And it's everybody's just guessing. I mean,
yeah.
test reliable? No. Is the, you might not have a temperature when you walk in, but guess what? You could have a temperature when you walk out. There was something I saw where this guy, in the very beginning, when everybody was really going crazy and like feeling like they had to wash their groceries, he was talking about how if you think about the virus being like glitter on something, and you're doing your best to get all the glitter off. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get the glitter off. I'm just like, I'm one of those people that hardly washes my hands anyway. Like, I'm just like, my kids had lice at one time. Like all 5 had lice, okay? And I had lice too, so it was the only one. And for a week, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm never gonna get all the eggs off. Like, what am I gonna do? And it's like that. And after a while, you're like, okay, I did get them off, and I like didn't. But it's like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna have to wash our hands and live.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, Yolanda, you alluded a little bit to this, and I loved your reference about a special candle or a matchbook, and I love your Instagram. So
Thank you.
People relate to you because they're like, oh, I've also been to that place, or some of the names of the matchbooks I didn't recognize, and it actually made me want to Google them. So, I mean, you really sort of compel people that way. And Lizzie and I have done some Instagram stories about how you make a home. We're not in our home, we're in our dad's house. So how you make somebody else's house your home. But despite your need for travel to sort of fill both of your souls, are you guys finding additional tricks and nice reprieves in the house? And you've got 5 kids and a husband. Are you cooking for all of them? Have you created new routines? Are you bringing inspiration into the home that you didn't used to have to rely on?
Do you want to go first, Yolanda? Because your husband is the most amazing cook. I can't,
Yeah, so I'm really lucky because I've got Matt, who's in love with cooking and loves making drinks and loves sharing that. And so it's sort of like, as I think that because of Instagram, once you start doing something that's a series, then you kind of you just keep doing it. So he kept on doing all of this kind of documenting the food he was making, and he actually got a cookbook out of it, which is kind of amazing. So
since COVID started?
What's that?
Since COVID started?
Yeah.
Wow, what an amazing silver lining. Yeah, that's cool.
I know, that was a great silver lining. Now I just need him to also start having like workout sessions, because or I need some pants with elastic. And makes great elastic pants, and I've been wearing them a lot. But I would say, like, Matt has been doing this thing. He started doing it from the very beginning, where he brought up a lot of like really nice clothes that we would never ever have in our house upstate. And I mean, I would say the only thing I would do is, like, on a Saturday night, I'd put on a caftan, and kind of that was like dressing up. And now we dress up, and we sort of like, I mean, maybe he does it now once a week. In the beginning, it was sort of much more frequent. But the idea of like putting something on that's a little bit outside of like, oh, well, I mean, I feel like it's like a universal truth that people are wearing their pajamas or their robe way later than ever, brushing their teeth later than ever. Then they imagine they'll work out, so then they put those clothes on, and then maybe at like 5 o'clock they realize, wait, it's time for a drink. I didn't work out. So I just think like all of this kind of like.
Is she there?
No, you froze.
I think that.
Okay, she'll be back.
And do you want to?
Oh wait,
You're back. You froze.
I froze.
You froze for 1 second, but now you're back. We think.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'm like, whatever we can do to.
Uh-oh. Keeps going out.
Brooklyn internet.
Bear with us, audience, as the Brooklyn internet apparently is worse than the country.
And in the meantime, are you doing things at home to make you feel like you're not at home, to make you feel like it's an adventure?
I feel like what I've really come to do is to enjoy my home. And I really, I love tidying. I love, I've had a couple put more pictures on the wall. We opened our pool, and I don't think I really appreciate it now. And we're eating, I have a big family. I cook a lot too, but Sid is actually coming home a little bit. I mean, we don't eat till late, but we've had family dinners almost every night. On Saturday night, our oldest daughter just got married, and every Saturday she and her husband come over. It's kind of like our, Shabbat, which would have been on Friday, but it's so fun, and it's like a party. We have drinks, and usually different. Sometimes we play games, but we have like questions at the table, or I'll find something funny to do, and it's really nice. It's just been so. I don't feel like I'm far away, but I'm so grateful to be at home. And I feel like,
Love that.
and we got a puppy. So
I saw that. That's my mom's big development of COVID. She's
Yeah.
going to get a puppy.
Yeah.
there are so many people. Yeah.
I think you're back, and I think you were alluding to dressing up more than usual. And
Yes, for dinner. Tell us about your dinner.
Okay. So you guys give me the high sign, because I just keep talking. If
talking is great.
okay. I would say dressing up, thinking about I'm a big fan of picking a place that you've been to and kind of channeling it. I've been doing this thing with Domino magazine, they're just on their Instagram stories, where once a week I'll come up with a location and sort of it's a little bit like a get the look, get the feeling. And I think that I just, these are things that in real life would feel really dorky in a non-pandemic world. But when you're in it, it just is nice. We have to find these ways to be we were saying earlier, it's like childhood. I mean, it's really going into that part of your brain where you're creating your own world. And I think it's really healthy to put on a different tablecloth and find all of the things that make you feel like you might be in that certain place. Sometimes I like to make a little travel altar kind of thing, where it's rocks from a place, shells from a place, and kind of just, I don't know, it's just moving things around in your house. And I think for you guys, not being in your own house, it's the finding the way that you can take an object and make even a corner your own.
Totally.
Well, I love that, Anne. Every time we're in your stores, I'm always taking pictures of your mood boards, because that's the same thing. It's that transportive feeling where you have these pictures that you're like, okay, I don't need to go to this place. I'm going to have this postcard and it's going to remind me of this place. And I feel like you guys both do that so naturally.
And so do you. I mean, Lizzie creates a vignette using a feather that she found outside and an acorn.
Right.
And a necklace,
But
and then her newest earring.
It's very powerful. I mean,
Yeah.
I think in lieu of actually being able to go somewhere, having that little mood board it's pretty powerful. Is that something that's in your home too, Anne, or is that something that's mainly relegated to the stores?
Yeah, actually, I don't do any of that really at home, but I have I have one wall that's all my family pictures, and it's upstairs going up to the attic. And so, when I run up there, I definitely have a trip down, I'm like, oh, that was so sweet when they were 6. And so but I think for me, it's been the time, because even though I'm working, I'm not rushed to get to the office because my whole team's not here. I might have a Zoom meeting, but I'll take it at home, and then I don't come in till later. And when I get home at 6 or 7, I'll take a run with the dog, and I'll have a glass of wine and cook dinner, and it doesn't matter if we don't eat until 8 or 9 or whatever, So for me, it's the time that I've been able to spend to go out into the yard and clip some greens and put them on the table. And like you said, if we're having Mexican food on that Saturday night, I make it I wear a little Mexican shirt, and I'll, get out the, things you should be doing all the time anyway. But when you're stressed and you come home from work and you're like, it would make me dinner and go, instead of, oh man, this is so great. I mean, I have to say, I don't know what I'm going to do when it's over, because I'm really, really used to having 2 glasses of wine every night. It's just probably bad. But the other thing about time is that I've had a little bit of time to go through my stuff. I was looking for something, I found this stack of old recipes from the New York Times and from, you know, old gourmet magazines. And I was going through them to pitch them because it was like this. But when I was going through them, you know, you remember exactly, you know, that apartment on Fifth Avenue and 10th Street that I made this in. And I don't really need it. I don't want to keep it. But that one time, I guess it's the Marie Kondo we like. They're like, oh, thank you, and I'm going to throw you away. But that transports you to maybe where you've been, but it's so sweet.
I think that's why people say that they're dreaming more. I mean, we're going to look at this moment, and obviously there's a lot of hardships this moment. And if we have, you know, financial security and health, you're kind of ahead of a lot of people. So by no means is this an easy time. But I do think your points about time and sort of just appreciating your family, appreciating being able to have a glass of wine and cut the flowers before dinner on a weeknight is something that doesn't normally define most of our working week any other day.
Yeah. I mean, even for us not having a commute, I feel like I have so much more time by virtue of not getting on a subway every day.
Absolutely.
Right.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. Should we ask Yolanda about transitions?
Yes. So Yolanda, you had this Instagram that I absolutely loved when you lost your job at Condé Nast Traveler, and it was about some of your fears and addressing those fears. And one of the fears you listed was never traveling again. And oh my gosh, I keep having this fear. I was first having this fear pre-COVID because Catherine and I are both pregnant and we travel together so much. And now I was having this fear already, being like, are we ever going to travel again? What are we going to do with the kids?
Like, we do little mini moons all the time to, you know, Morocco or southern France or wherever.
And then with COVID, I was like, oh my gosh, now like that pales in comparison to this. Now we have this huge new fear about not traveling again. But you already kind of went through that transition when you lost your job, and then you said in your Instagram comment that you faked it till you made it, and you kept traveling, and you developed this journal. And I mean, to all of us looking at you, it appears that you really landed back on your feet in an incredible major way. Did that transition help you deal with this chaos that we've all been going through? Did it prepare you a little bit?
And maybe have been furloughed or whose jobs are also going through transitions. Yeah, I'm sure some of us have that.
I think so. I mean, I hadn't really thought about it, but I think that the whenever I don't know, I mean, maybe it's also with age comes wisdom sort of thing. It's like, you know, we're all going to be fine. It's just we don't know what that fine looks like, because the old fine is what we know, and we know that it won't look like that again. So that sort of fear is what I think is what I try to do is not to be afraid, because I think that the fear is the biggest creativity killer. And I think it also, so I kind of have two minds of it. Like, one part of me was not wanting to tell anybody in the moment that I was afraid. So I'm really good at shoving the fear down. There's like a lot of, you know, childhood shit that comes from. So I'm pretty good at that. And then, so kind of, you know, putting on the face like it's all going to be okay. And not allowing the insecurities to come in, because the second that you really start, you know, it's like, I don't know, should I make a magazine? Like, when print is dying, like, will people want to read it? Do I have anything to say? Like, am I really a good traveler? Like, all that stuff that's in that we all have it. Like, do I even have good taste? Like, everybody has those things that come into your head. I think that once you get to where you've made the thing and you're doing well with the thing, that's when you have to admit that you actually were scared the whole time. Because that for me is the sort of pay it forward kind of thing. Like, we have to let other people know that we are not perfect. We're just as insecure, but I'm going to not let you know that until I get to the other side. Yeah. And then like, you will get to the other side. So I feel like we all as humans have to do that for each other. So that was when it was that anniversary, I was like, all these people think that my life is just so, I don't know, blessed, whatever. Like, I just travel the world and I'm just gallivanting all this. And it's like, no, there's a lot of like, there's a lot of hustle that goes behind that. There's a lot of planning that I don't document. I don't document the arguments and the anxiety, and I just document the pretty stuff.
Yeah.
So so anyway, I do think that all leads up to, yes, I mean, I think like what's hard is actually right now, I can't actually fake it till I make it. I think that's probably why there's like a lot of, I don't know, like today I talked to my neighbor and I said, I never cried like I cry now. Like I cry all the time. And what happened to me? Who am I? And I think it's that we don't know when it's over. And so that fake it till you make it does make this part hard, because we're just in it.
Yeah. Everybody's kind of got to be their most authentic version of themselves, because everybody's kind of equally desperate and clueless at the same moment. But we agree with you. I mean,
it's a bit freeing because you have zero control over it. So, and it's, I think, other than a war, like I've never experienced things like this. And there's, in the beginning, if there was nothing in the grocery store, I'm not responsible for what's going on. Like I had to furlough a lot of employees, and that was terrible. But I didn't feel like it was a bad business decision I made that led up to that. So I did, I can't take credit or blame during this time. I just have to navigate through it so to me, it's kind of freeing. I mean, I'm trying every day to make great decisions based on what the world looks like today, but nobody's going to change this, except, God. I mean, it really is just, it's a really tragic, but it's not because I did something right or wrong.
Right.
When I first started our business, I was terrified, but then, got into it and then just was so busy. I just avoided being scared by doing every day,
We had a guest a few weeks ago who actually made she's also pregnant. She works in the wedding industry. We were talking about people who had to cancel their weddings. And I think this applies to everybody. And Yolanda and Ann, you guys just both sort of said it, but being easy on yourselves right now is sort of step one of like the 10-step plan of dealing with COVID. I mean, you got to give yourself a little bit of a break, because crying more regularly or, feeling like, I've got to furlough my team, but this is out of my control. You kind of just have to be a little bit easier on yourself so that you don't completely unravel right now.
Yeah.
And that brings us to your support systems, maybe not, which is your husbands. You both are unique in that your husbands are involved in your brands. So Sid has the men's store, and Yolanda, obviously, you've got Matt is WM Brown Project, which both of your husbands are very with. So how has it been being sort of home with them? Lizzie cited in our questions as we were doing some research when Matt once said that I think the best version of himself is on the road. Or did Yolanda say that? Okay.
There was something on Tori Birch's blog that I read that I loved, when you said, I think we are our best versions of ourselves when we travel.
Right.
So is it hard to get home with the person? And Anne, I know like Sid's on the road a lot. Are you guys spending more time together right now? Like how is the vibe with the husbands, especially because they have really travel heavy brands as well?
You first.
Okay. So I mean, I have to work with Sid, and I would never recommend it. It's really, I'm not at my best when I work with Sid. But that being said, we're not really spending it. I think we spend about the same amount of time together now that we usually do, which is a lot. But he's spending more time with the kids. Like he's coming home a little earlier, and because we're not going anywhere on the weekends, like, we've gotten into watching some television shows with them, and we play games. I mean, stuff that hasn't happened since they were in elementary school. So that's been really great. So I think, and also even at work, it's just a really skeletal staff. Yeah. So we're not as much in maybe we're actually in each other's stuff a little more even actually. But.
I feel like sometimes Lizzie and I are not married, but we say we're work wives. So sometimes we do help each other. When one of us is sort of at wit's end and really fragile and going to break, the other one does the heavy lifting or pulls the other person out of the work hole. So in these COVID moments where you're furloughing a team, or where, Yolanda, we want to ask you about what the next version of YOLO Journal will bring. But when you're sort of, the future is unknown and there's a business on the line, does your spouse help pull you off the ledge, or is that not really what they're there for because they're running half the business themselves?
Well, I'll say that when I'm really uptight, Sid is like terrible. Like both of us, like when we're bad, we're really bad together. Okay. Because nobody wants someone they really love to be bad or mad or sad. You don't react well. I'm not great with that. He's not great with that. My oldest daughter, though, who I'm very close with, and I would think your work relationship is probably a lot more like ours, where when I'm really down, she's surprisingly up. And then vice versa. Like we really have this female, just amazing to work with. That's not true with Sid at all. It's really awful. I mean, so you answer that. What do you feel?
I would say, it's like when we work very separately and we work very differently. Like I'm more like on William Brown, I'm sort of like the managing editor. I'm a Virgo, I'm super organized. So I just like, I actually,
my wife.
Yes, let's do it. I enjoyed this kind of like mapping out how we're going to get from A to Z, and it's his. And so then I'm like, well, where is that? So we definitely like, we're getting better now that we're like going to, I think it's issue 5, issue 1 and 2 and 3. I think there were plenty of times I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't, I just can't. It was too much, but little by little, like, I mean, Matt never ran a magazine before. And so it was a challenge. And I think that he's become good at running a magazine, but he's never going to watch this. So I can say that. But don't send him the link, Anne.
Can't sit still long enough, to be honest.
That's true, right? It's 45 minutes in, he'll never hear that. Okay, but I would say, it's like we work very independently. It's more like you do this, and then I'll read it, and then I'll show him things from YOLO, and I'll say like, "What do you think? Is this a cover? Yes or no?" So I think that we're different enough in our skill sets that it's complementary.
Yeah, I think that
we haven't worked together for a long time.
Sit under the bus. I mean, we're I'm like, clearly we got it down, but I think we're really emotionally, connected. So you don't want someone you love to disagree with you.
Yeah.
A lot of times we have to disagree, and in marriage, there's maybe 10 times a day, but in work life, there's like 100 times a day.
Yeah.
So I think if I didn't love him so much, I probably would work a lot better.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for Lizzie and me, our skill sets are very different. Lizzie's the creative, she's the artistic side of the brain. I have a finance background, and actually, I mean, down to our partnership agreement, which we wrote 10 years ago, we actually said if there's a creative disagreement, Lizzie gets final say, and if there's a financial disagreement, Catherine gets final say. And I mean, that's on paper.
Wow.
Legal document.
I wish I need that. Like,
we got really good advice a long time ago, which was like, you need to make a plan for how to solve every disagreement, because my mom's greatest fear was that as best friends running a business together, if anything ever became between our relationship, no business is worth that.
It's
so
true.
I mean, and you both speak to that as you work closely with your husband. So I think figuring that out, and then also being pent up in quarantine with them, sort of magnifies everything as we're all under a lot of stress.
Are most of your work travels with your husbands, or do you guys find yourselves traveling solo often?
I travel a little solo without him, but not much. Enough. I mean, I enjoy that too, to be honest. But I love traveling with him. I mean, no matter how mad I am about something that happened in the office, I get on the plane, I'm like, I can't believe I'm going. So
it's all over again.
Right.
I can put it aside because it's, to be able to travel is a huge luxury and a gift. And to your point about, dreaming about it. I mean, just the longing of going someplace is an amazing emotion to have.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Planning is half of it. I mean, whenever you get home from a trip, Lizzie and I say the most important next thing to do is put another trip on the calendar. So you have something to look forward to.
Plan.
Right.
Experience, like some places I know I'm never going to go again. I like ever, but I can still, be inspired by a photo. I mean, maybe I'll go, but I just, I don't know. I'm old. I can't go everywhere.
Yolanda, do you primarily travel with Matt?
I have a client out in California that's in the Napa Valley. So whenever I go there, I go on my own, and I really like it. I mean, I love driving a car. So landing in the airport, getting in the car, and I have a ton of friends in San Francisco because I'm from the Bay Area. So he's sort of not really like into hanging out with my friends that will just reminisce. So I go there and I get to just kind of do my thing. And so that's great. And that happens about 4 times a year.
Good.
We'll see how it happens moving forward. But yeah, I love doing that. And then when we travel together, it's just like Ann said, it's so fun. And we often travel, we try and travel with Clara as much as possible. So since we have just one, it's easier.
That's fantastic. Me not so much.
Quickly before we get to our next question, someone actually just asked a good one. Are there aspects of travel that you hope don't go back to normal? So what do you hope will improve from the whole, I mean, you guys sort of are expert travelers. So from, leaving your apartment or your house, getting to the airport, getting on the plane, are there things that you actually hope the industry might change for the better? Minus the whole reconfiguration of seats, which we agree is a bit far-fetched from a budget perspective.
I mean, I hope that, I know that this is clearly, I don't take advertising from the cruise industry. So I'm going to say, I hope the cruise industry really changes drastically. And a lot of it, there are some conscientious people in that world, but not as many as there should be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think people perhaps traveling a little bit less and making their choices about where they're going, like going a little deeper, like the way you just said, the planning thing, like that's sort of how I look at right now. I hope everybody goes into planning mode. And even if that's planning that's going to happen for a trip that might be in a year, you're going to be really, really an expert on that place.
Totally.
And think about like how often we go somewhere and we're like Googling, like, what is this church I'm at? Or like, what is this history of? Totally. And like how much better travelers we could all be if we just really anticipated, like where we've lost our sort of anticipation because we're just always racing. And so for me, that's my personal, like, I think that I've been racing too much. So I feel like now I'm going to think about things. I'm going to like actually read more books, try and dig a little deeper than like being on Wikipedia when I'm in front of the thing. And then I don't retain anything. And, it's like, life can't just be about Instagram captions and pictures.
Yeah, I love that.
That's my message to myself.
No, I think I love that. That resonated with a lot of people just now. Well, we went to Japan in 2013, and because it was such a big trip and a foreign trip and an expensive trip and a long trip, it was unlike many other trips, and we really dedicated so much time to planning. I mean, tips from friends that we aggregated in Excel sheets, to the point that when we were there, it felt like we could walk around a neighborhood and know, like, oh, up here on the right, we're going to run into a bagel shop where the guy trained at Costler's Bialy in the Lower East Side, which actually did happen. Or we're going to run into this little shop. And we could kind of, like you're saying, anticipate the trip so that our heads weren't in our cell phones. I mean, we had mapped out each day in a way that allowed us the freedom. The night before, we weren't like trying to hustle to figure out how are we going to make the best of tomorrow. Whereas on other more rush trips, you're kind of sitting at dinner trying to Google on your phone, what's the best thing for me to do the next day, which is not a way to enjoy things. But I
Right.
So smart.
Is there a destination that each of you are dying to get back to? And or a destination that you're dying to discover that you've never been before?
Well, I've never been to Japan, and I'm dying to go to Japan.
Great
I've
answer.
never been to Africa. I actually just wrote about it this week in my little blog that I do, because I've never, and those are the two places that I really, really want to go. But you know.
I can't wait to get back to Italy, and it's sort of like Italy, Greece, and France. Like I really miss those places. And a place that I've never been and now I really want to go is Guatemala. And that happened because I did this imaginary road trip with Molly Berry from Luna Zorro. And it was just so transporting doing this week-long trip with her, because we really did it on a daily sequence throughout the week. And so every night she'd be like, tomorrow we're going to do this. I just fell in love with the country. It was amazing.
I love
So,
that.
I think that should be an exercise that we all do with a friend or a spouse, is an
right?
imaginary trip somewhere that then we get to live out a few years from now or whenever it happens. I think
Right.
it would make it so much more
Right.
and rewarding.
And actually, I want to add a question that we just got, which is about Airbnb. Are you guys Airbnb users? Are you loyal to certain hotel chains or a small boutique hotel, or do you like being in Airbnbs because it kind of gets you, off the beaten path? And if so, are you open to returning to Airbnbs, or do you think this whole sharing community that became really big over the last decade is going to, obviously they're suffering right now, but do you think it will continue to suffer? Do you think it'll bounce back?
I've never stayed in an Airbnb.
Wow.
Well, there you go. From the traveler herself.
So, and I think that that's honestly though, not because I wouldn't, because it's because I was a traveler for so long. And so we were so in the industry with hotels. And I mean, in that they were our partners, and then you become good friends with those people, and then the GM moves to somewhere else. And so, you stay in that world. I mean, I think Airbnb is awesome. And I don't know how I not only feel for them, but I feel for so many of the people whose industries, that's their livelihood, is having an Airbnb. So I don't know. I mean, people are still renting houses. So if they're renting houses, why not do an Airbnb? I don't know. I think it'll come back. I think people will get a little looser.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a really bad thing for me to say, but it's my secret hope.
Yeah, we've done Airbnb because I have a big family. We've done that. And sometimes we do it for work because we'll travel with a couple, 4 or 5 of us, and it seems like a nice thing. But in the end, I have to say that I love a hotel. And because of what we were saying before, it's like, you make this effort to get there. And Airbnb is always a question. It can ruin the whole trip. Like we had one that was great in Italy. It was amazing, but there was no hot water. And so, it was, I will never forget the trip. But so I feel like, I think something else that we're going to come out of this with is just an appreciation for time and for, you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So today you're going to make it great. You're going to, buy the right thing. You're going to treat yourself to something that you're going to have forever. And when you travel someplace, you're going to make it count, because you only have 7 days. You don't want to have a crummy meal, stay in a crummy place,
Right.
So
yeah.
I love a nice hotel.
Okay, we have such little time. This has gone so fast. You guys are such a wealth of.
No, I can't believe you said an hour. I was like, an hour.
So we're doing our round to finish it off. And I'll ask each of you guys, and you don't have to think too hard about it, but best hotel breakfast you've ever had.
You can both answer real time.
Huevos Rancheros Sunset Tower.
Oh,
okay. I don't love to eat a big breakfast, but I'm really bad at buffet because I do not have an off switch. So the Hotel Relais Christine in Paris, breakfast is in a basement, and you would think, oh, it's a basement, but it's so
Love it.
Love it. Okay, if you're splurging on a hotel big time, your most recommended hotel splurge.
I'm the Pelicano. I just love that place. I think it's just magical.
Love it. Anne?
I don't know. I don't splurge very often. I will tell you, instead of splurge, I'll say my favorite hotel that I've stayed in. And then it was wound up in the trip. And actually, I have my set of keys I gave to Sid and I. It's the Ritz in Madrid.
Oh,
love it.
It's so good.
It's not even like it changed. It's not that, but it was just so dreamy. And it's old, not like the fanciest Ritz at all, but it was just like really great. So
can I see the back of your sweater, Anne?
Oh yeah, it's really cute, right?
And somebody asked, is that on your website, Anne?
No, I should have worn something to sew. I'm so bad. We're doing something like it again.
It's so good.
Keep watching for it, and I'll do it again. But it's great. But it's actually really weird because since it's white there, you think someone's following you. Like, vision is really like, what's on my shoulder?
My next lightning round is selfish for me because I am such a hoarder and a big antique person. But any cities that you've been to that you feel have the best antique markets or flea markets?
Oh, that's your
For
profession.
me, I would say France in the summertime, just really like almost every town is going to have a empty, they call them vide grenier. It's like empty the attic or an antique market. I actually did something, I think it was in the second issue. I'll send it to you, but basically just like there's really a great app and you can just go in there and type in the zip code of where you are in France, or you can make one up for the future and figure out where the markets are. But of course I love the big one in Paris, but one great one I went to with a friend of mine was in this little town called Albi in the Southwest. And it was one of these markets that happens twice a year. And I think the ones that happen a couple times a year are the really good ones.
The one
but
in
summertime, perfect.
In Round Top, outside.
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
Love that.
So good. I was supposed to
go
this year.
Right. What was canceled this year?
Yeah.
Lizzie and I were in India once, and there's a market called Chandi Chowk, and our driver refused to let two little, 25-year-old white girls off at Chandi Chowk Market because it's huge and expensive, and there's, peddlers of every kind of wear. And we said, don't worry. Give us 2 hours. We got this. But Lizzie and I love nothing more than the hunt. And we all share with you guys.
Okay, and the very last one, because we're almost out of time, is most underrated city or town or village you've ever been to.
I would say people don't really know how magical Bordeaux is. And I think it's an amazing city. And it's just it's really easy to navigate, and you don't run into yes, there's a high street, but it's not like that. Everything feels like it's from there, not from somewhere else. And I love that.
That's awesome. Love it.
So I would go back to Spain, which I don't think anybody necessarily underrates, but for me, it was never a country that I was dying to go to Spain. Mm-hmm. But I felt like it was the most just old-fashioned. It felt so European to me in a way that I really felt like I just was in a really different place. And the spirit of the people in Madrid I found really elegant, and I loved Spain. I don't love the food as much in Spain. I love Italian food, but I loved being in Spain.
Love it. We have I want to do the very last one in our 1 minute left. If you honeymooned, where did you honeymoon?
Oh my gosh.
St. Bart's.
Nice.
Great.
Of course you did. This is a funny story if you have time, but before I have a picture of Matt and Yolanda on my mood board in Washington, D.C. And I knew Matt, but I didn't really know Yolanda, but I'd had that picture up because they eloped, and it is the most amazing picture. I will send you a close-up, but it had an amazing. Sid and I went to Lake Tahoe, California. Stayed in my
Oh,
friend Daisy's parents' cottage on the lake because we had no money.
That's amazing.
And we were there in December, and it was really sweet. We had they left us
nice.
rolls in the refrigerator, and we used their old cross country skis.
That sounds very romantic.
There's something nostalgic and romantic about that. Well, we are now past the hour mark. You guys are amazing.
So
I feel
fun.
I want to go sit down at dinner and go around the table and swap travel stories and goals and live in our imagination for the next few days. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.